Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 5. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. Off day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Much needed and much deserved after 6 straight training camp practices. The longest stretch of the year for Pittsburgh this training camp. And kind of going to be on the backside of this when Pittsburgh gets back out there Tuesday. They'll practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, open to the public. And then it is game week day. Buffalo, or was it Houston Texans, I should say, for the opener Friday, August 9th. And so preseason action just days away.
Yeah, finally. Is this did they have a 6-day stretch last year during training camp?
Typically the longest stretch is 6 days.
Oh,
I think they had one last year.
Well, the good news, like you said, is you've been doing a great job passing along information daily in your camp diaries, and we've been having the special edition podcast nightly after you get back, and it's been able to help me paint a nice picture in my head of kind of what I'll be looking for and kind of the orders of players entering the game. And Friday's definitely going to be an exciting time because we get our first preseason action. It'll be interesting to see. Look, Tuesday is going to be a big day for this team, more specifically when it comes to Russell Wilson. Will he finally be a full participant, in a training camp practice, something that hasn't happened yet? Obviously, since the team's been at Latrobe, if not, how much, if any time, should we expect him to play in a preseason game on Friday? The tape in and of itself, we'll at least have the TV copy to look over, Friday evening on into Saturday morning, and then hopefully, the all 22 tape. It'd be perfect to have that all 22 tape on Saturday all day. And get it fully digested. I have a feeling that we might not get it until Sunday, though. But regardless, it is an exciting time, especially for people that have not been at camp, that will finally get to see this team on the field for the first time.
Yeah, Dave, the preseason opener, always a ton of fun. And the other question in terms of not just the quality of play, the question is who will play. And let's kind of jump into some housekeeping, injury standpoint. And we talk about that on the special edition episodes, but to recap things for the main show where things left off on Sunday's practice. Not practicing Sunday included Roman Wilson, who seems to be making progress out of the boot, was catching some passes stationary. I think even did push-ups after practice, or Tim Rice noticed with the other wide receivers. So encouraging signs there for Roman Wilson. Also not practicing Jeremiah Moon. He's missed a couple days. Don't know why. That is a little concerning. Rodney Williams, unfortunately, going backwards with a shoulder injury. He practiced in full in Saturday's padless practice and then did not practice at all in Sunday's padded session. Patrick Queen has missed a couple days, got dinged in Friday Night Lights. It's a foot or ankle. He's okay, though. And then Graylin Arnold, Kyron Johnson working their way back from injuries. Don't know if they'll get back for the opener. I think Arnold will. Johnson, a little less certain of. So overall, health-wise, they're in a pretty good spot, but a couple names to watch.
All right. As far as, look, the talk of the training camp so far seems to be Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and especially with Russell Wilson not being full yet. And once again, we'll be watching to see if that happens, this next week to some degree, or it just seems like he continues to step up the ladder, even like a half a rung at a time when it comes to his participation. Mike Tomlin sat down with Kay Adams on her show this past week, and she was asked, look, you're not getting anything out of Tomlin after practices because those media sessions are like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and he doesn't say much of anything. But Kay Adams sat down with him and in so many words asked about the competition between, Justin, or supposed competition between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And he says, certainly they're competing, but I don't overly concern ourselves with being fair. There's no such thing as 50-50. We just pay respect to the totality of his resume and his experience. We lean on it. We let him lead the group informally. And I think he goes on to say Justin Fields has absorbed a lot of responsibility since coming into the league. It's probably a great opportunity for him to work alongside day to day somebody at his position that's done it longer and done it at a higher level. But rest assured, both guys are going to be given an opportunity to show their skills over the course of the next month, and I'm excited about watching them sort themselves out. Blah blah blah. And that was about the long and short of that. Look, this isn't surprising to hear Tomlin talk, but not talk. But I mean, I think there's a message within there, and I think it's the one that we've had, the whole time here. Is this going to take a lot? It's going to take more from Russell Wilson in a negative light than Justin Fields in a positive light for the week one quarterback to be the latter.
Here's my thoughts on where things sit quarterback wise to answer the question of why is this team being so exceedingly cautious with Russell Wilson, who, again, if you just watched him, looks healthy, looks fine out there, and has still been working in some capacity almost daily and continuing to ramp things up, and threw his first pass in the 11-on-11 session of training camp on Sunday, a 5-yard curl to wide receiver Deuce Watts, which, as we joked yesterday's show, we all had on our scorecard of Wilson to Watts as the first completion of training camp.
Absolutely had it.
People learning how to spell Deuce Watts' name. A lot of misspellings of his name. It's D-U, not D-E. So that's just a little tip there for people not knowing who Deuce Watts are, even some of the reporters. But anyway, my thoughts on the quarterback situation, this team being so cautious with Wilson and getting this look at Fields, who has had a good training camp and his play is ascending. Twofold, I think, they want to be careful they don't turn a small injury of Wilson into a large injury. We talked about Joe Burrow with a calf injury last year, had that lingered and the team might have pressed, and he was just not the same guy throughout the first month of the season until that thing fully healed. Wilson is 35, 36. He's new to Pittsburgh. You don't want to risk it and turn that small thing into a big thing that lingers into the regular season, and you're dealing with that as you're trying to deal with everything else new for this offense. And then two, I think this gives this team a long look to evaluate Justin Fields. We know that, assuming for a moment that Russell Wilson is this team's starter, once the season begins, that backup gets few reps, not going to get a whole lot of playing time, won't get to really evaluate him. And so the more you can learn about Fields right now and watch him over a period of time, and you see some of that progression from start of camp till now, even though it's only training camp and only going to be some preseason action, it's still at least something to evaluate him off of. So if Wilson is your starter wire to wire, you at least have some kind of information, understanding of Fields and how he works and his process, how he makes mistakes and learns from them and gets better and all those kinds of things. So, has the gap closed between Wilson and Fields for the starting role? Sure, I think you could say that in the sense of when Wilson doesn't practice and Fields practices and plays well, the gap naturally closes. But to me, despite the chatter about it and maybe people wanting Fields to be the starter, which is a perfectly acceptable opinion, but I still strongly believe that Wilson will be this team's week one starter.
And that's kind of where I was going to go, going to say true or false. Russell Wilson will be this team's week one starter, barring injury, and that's basically where we both started this thing before training camp, before the team even showed up at training camp. But this is once again, there's positive within this because, like you said, you get to see a lot of Justin Fields during this process here, and see him get more reps than probably he would have gotten had Russell Wilson started this thing healthy. To me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Russell Wilson has been in this league a long time. You know what his ceilings are. You know what his floor is. I would think to some degree. You've seen him have to go through and adjust to a different system offensively and all like that. You know how he's going to react. I think you know who he is as a leader. Justin Fields, even though he's been in the league, a few years now, he's still a relatively young guy, and you're still trying to learn more about him. So, look, if this thing goes the way that we think that it will, and Russell Wilson starts this. I didn't call him Roman earlier, did I?
No, I don't think you did.
I got so many Wilsons on my mind.
Sure.
Russell Wilson starts the season in week 1 like we expect, but then you don't get the results out of him that you think you should be. At least you've been able to get Justin Fields a lot of prep time within this. That you can pull the plug on Russell Wilson and plug it into to Justin Fields here. So look, we've known throughout the last couple of years specifically, quarterback competitions in training camp aren't quarterback competitions in training camp, right?
Yeah, again, you still compare this to 2022 and how that went. And to be clear, and I'm more confident in this than ever, and I think the team will feel this as well, Justin Fields will play even if Russell Wilson is the starter. I mean, there's going to be work for Fields, and he should. There's far too much talent for him to sit there and hold the clipboard the entire time. So that'll ebb and flow week to week based on game plan, based on game circumstance. But they're running a ton of read option. They're putting in some design quarterback runs, and Mike Tomlin talked about even being surprised by Fields' speed and athleticism, getting to see that in person as opposed to just watching it on tape or maybe from afar. There's going to be work for Fields, even if and assuming that Wilson starts for this team.
Yeah. This kind of leads us into our next topic that I didn't wake up knowing that we were going to kind of be, discussing on this show, but former NFL wide receiver Andrew Hawkins was evidently on ESPN Get Up on Monday morning, and he thinks it's a bad idea using both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson under center for a number of reasons. And he says he thinks that it could divide the Steelers locker room. And he says, as a wide receiver, that's like showing up to the barbershop and giving me a different barber every single time. My game is tailored to who my quarterback is, and it would be so annoying throughout the game to have to be teetering the way that I'm going about my business based on who's at the quarterback position. There's a bunch of other reasons, like it forces the quarterback to press. And if you put in a situation on a quarterback where he has to press, he will not be as good. Another situation is players will choose sides. It will divide the locker room. They'll feel like they'll have one guy and other guys will choose their favorite. Look, I am a big fan of the old phrase, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. But I view that more in a, throughout a game when you're trying to, when it's far less unbalanced as far as usage goes. I'm not advocating rotating these guys every other series or every 2 series or anything like that. But I do think, and we've talked about this a ton since both these quarterbacks landed in Pittsburgh, that there are reasons of why that the athleticism more than anything that you would like to get Justin Fields out there in certain down distant situations. Am I talking 8, 9, 12 snaps a game? No, realistically, I'm thinking, 3, 4, 5, maybe at max there. Do you see this? I can see Hawkins' side from some standpoint. I guess more so if there was more of a split of trying to get these guys into games. But do you buy into, do you have any concern about any of this, especially if it is a situation where Justin Fields is coming into the game, let's say 5 plays at max?
No, not from that aspect. And Hawkins, he's coming from the perspective of being with some unstable, kind of chaotic organizations. He was in Cleveland for a couple of years and Cincinnati before they kind of really, found their footing. And so when you have chaotic organizations, you get chaos out there on the field and some probably knee-jerk reactions, which won't be the case nearly as much in Pittsburgh, which is much more stable. There's a culture there, and Tomlin can steer that ship probably better than what Hawkins experienced. And so, yeah, this is not like they're going to play every other series. You're going to bounce back and forth between quarterback starts this week, next quarterback starts the following week. That's not going to be the case. So that's not going to be the issue. I don't see that being a problem. What I could see as a potential issue, at least certainly in the media scope and maybe even in that locker room as well, what if Wilson starts the year and doesn't play well and you stick with him, try to push through him, and you got Fields on the bench and you get the chatter of, should they turn to Fields? Should Fields be the guy? Because that the second that Wilson struggles, there's going to be talk there about getting Fields in the lineup, and players will be asked about that. And maybe they have their opinions that they would agree. I don't know. I could see that as the issue, but less so the Hawkins 2-quarterback approach.
Look, winning cures everything, right?
Sure, but what if they're not winning?
Right,
what if they're struggling? What if Wilson has a bad game? They win in spite of him. Then you say,
sure.
Go to Fields.
Sure. Look at some of these games this team won last year, right?
Yeah.
And the way that they won. JJ Haskell, salary cap guy, a little lesser known than a Joel Corey is, but he in a couple of tweets this morning, put out there, the Steelers are not obviously not financially tied to Russell Wilson, so
for either guy, really.
To either guy. In fact, technically they're paying Justin Fields more than they're paying Russell Wilson,
right.
In from a cash perspective. Yeah, I get it. Denver paying yada, yada. And that's why Russell Wilson took the deal. But at its core, you got to look at how much you're spending on the product. It doesn't matter how much somebody else is spending on the product. That's now your product. So it would be a lot easier for the Steelers, and I hope that Mike Tomlin has the gall to do it. I feel like he would, learning lessons so far, especially in the situation the last. Look, he had no problem pulling a plug on Mitch Trubisky, did he? A lot easier so than Kenny Pickett. I think. Long story short here is that if you get through 3 or 4 games, he's not going to pull them if they're winning, though. Russell Wilson, I don't think would get sat down by Mike Tomlin if this team is 3-0, 4-0.
Sure, no, but if they lose, if they go on a skid,
if they're 1-3 or something like that, and you can point specifically at the quarterback, the defense is doing their job, but we got the ghost of Matt Canada. We got to score more points. Then you need to look at it, and I feel Mike Tomlin will just when will he finally yank that plug out. And look, here's the thing. There's nothing to preclude you from even though it's unhealthy at its core, there's nothing to preclude you from playing swapsies back and forth as the season goes on.
Yeah, but that's when you get into the 2-quarterback situation, and that's really messy. But I get your point.
Right, but you're doing that anyway because you're not getting the results and you're not getting the wins and all like that. What did we say is the main objective coming out of, obviously other than making the playoffs and winning a playoff game and all, what is hopefully one of your main objectives to come out of the 2024 season?
Find your quarterback of the future. Find out who's your starter in 2025.
Right. Now, if that means playing swapsies late in the season because I'm not advocating. I'm not a fan of that, obviously, and I know you're not either there. But you don't have a lot invested in either of the quarterbacks here, and once again, this rolls back to the start of this conversation here, and going into training camp. Russell Wilson absolutely has to fall flat on his face, or this injury be enough to prevent him from being the week 1 starter. Everything that, bless his heart, Justin Fields could come out there and be perfect the rest of training camp and just light it up in the preseason. Oh boy, wouldn't that be a topic? But anything beyond Russell Wilson not be, falling flat on his face, he's going to be the week 1 starter. That's the way it's felt since both these guys landed in Pittsburgh. And I know you agree with that.
Are you as confident in that now as you were at the start of training camp?
Yeah, because I haven't even seen hardly.
That's true.
Any one of these quarterbacks in a Steelers uniform yet. You have. I rely on your reports and all like that.
Yeah, but you've seen the video. Anytime Fields does anything, the video gets posted. But
I don't.
Seen his big plays.
Yeah, but he is who I thought he was. Nothing in any of that made me say, along those lines. He's exactly who I thought it was to this point. And then look, we're talking about practice.
You're doing all the hits here, Denny Green.
Yeah,
practice,
but
AI.
I want to get my eyes on him in a preseason game. But even then, boy, did we learn lessons about last preseason, and making sure not to read too much into that. And the most overarching thing here about this whole quarterback situation is we've yet to see Russell Wilson go full into practice.
He's only thrown one pass.
To be able to form any sort of camp opinion on him.
Sure, although how much of his camp performance will change your opinion on whether or not he should start week 1?
Unless it
has to be terrible.
Miserable. Miserable.
So it doesn't matter as much.
Right. And it's, you're already, there was already a preconceived division within fans of who should and shouldn't be the starting quarterback before training camp got underway. And every clip that gets posted, good or bad, or sometimes, people will overanalyze it to make a more bad out of a good clip and a good out of a bad clip, which happens every year anyway. Some people are going to be disappointed. Some people are going to be happy either way. But nothing has changed my mind since camp got started that leads me to believe Russell Wilson won't be the week 1 starting quarterback. And I haven't even observed a full practice or preseason game. Now, you have watched every practice. Is there, and who's out there and who's not, is there been anything to let you think that there's just that's increased the chances of Justin Fields to be the week 1 quarterback?
Like I said earlier, when Fields does play well and Wilson doesn't, there has to be, I think, some movement. It can't be completely static as it was before. But to me, there is still a big gap between Wilson and Fields in terms of who's going to start week 1 and who this team is most likely to go with, while still finding ways to get Fields on the field in certain packages, which I think they'll do pretty consistently throughout the season. I know I'm taking too long of a view for August 5th, and these are conversations I know we're going to have down the road. But again, Wilson, I believe, will start week 1, but there will be a point where he'll struggle. The team will lose a game, he'll throw a bad pick, whatever the case is, take a bad sack, and people will start talking about, let's get Fields in there. That's going to be a pretty quick, immediate reaction, especially if Fields looks good inside of a stadium in preseason action, which I think he will, because he's just so naturally physically talented and will shine in moments like those. And to the quarterback question of, do you pull Russell Wilson, which will be a discussion I'm sure we'll have at some point down the road. Mike Tomlin, he has been a little stubborn with pulling quarterbacks. He stuck with Pickett arguably longer than he should have. And even with Trubisky, he probably went a game too long on him before turning to Mason Rudolph when it only became super obvious and there was no decision about it. So, I wouldn't be shocked if he stuck with Russell Wilson through some murky waters, because, I think obviously he recruited and wanted Russell Wilson to be a Steeler. That was their first guy they targeted. And I don't think he's going to have necessarily a quick hook on pulling Russell Wilson, which will create more discussion and more controversy.
I think you have to have a larger. I don't think you can get into. Okay, let's say for some reason, and with the quarterback obviously playing some role in it, you lose week 1. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You get into week 2 and things are not going well in Denver against the Broncos. I don't think you'll see Tomlin with that quick of a hook. But on the flip side of that, I would like to think and assume Mike Tomlin learned from last season. Look, Mitch Trubisky was earning $8 million in total last season, right? It was bad in those couple of games, and what was the game he got yanked in late? The Colts, right? The second bad interception.
Very end of the Colts game.
Sometimes when it's right there in front of your face and you see it and it's that bad and noticeable, that's when I think, and in other words, when we see it, he should see it and then pull the plug. And hopefully you don't see it, Right. But I would like to think that he maybe learned from last season.
Maybe, and we'll see. But to use your scenario, if things go poorly the first week or two, immediately from the media fan perspective, every national show is going to be going nuts about putting Fields in the game.
Right, because even as vested as people might think they are in either guy right now, the Wilsonites or the Fieldites, they're not married to either one of those guys,
The team or the fan base?
The fan base, right.
Right, but there's certainly right now, and this can all change with one bad performance, but a fervor to get Fields in there. And if he has a good preseason and then becomes the backup, like A, everyone loves the backup, and B, everyone loves the backup who look good in the summer. And that's going to, I'm just talking about the things I know we'll be talking about down the road, and we'll address them when they happen. Well,
hopefully we won't. Hopefully this team comes out, especially looking at the first 2 or 3 games here, they feel like they're games that the Steelers should definitely be in and win.
Sure, but even if they have a great start, when they there's going to be a down portion of the season because almost every team has a tough part of the season. If that happens late in the year where they're facing that gauntlet with 6 AFC North games in Philadelphia and Kansas City, then maybe the conversation doesn't come up until the end of the season, but it's going to come up at some point.
So you're saying this team's not going 17-0? Right? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Unless it's just amazing and Wilson turns back the clock a decade and this defense is 1976-esque. There's going to be some low points. So I'm just saying, I know that conversation will appear at some point. It's probably really fruitless for me to talk about because it's down the road and it's inevitable. And I think everyone kind of understands that. But where things are at right now, they're being super cautious with Wilson. They get the advantage of getting some more reps and a better feel for who Fields is and isn't. And that can help him. And if Fields has to play later in the season, he can lean on these extra reps right now. So I just think that's what's going on right now. I think it's less about Fields really challenging Wilson to be the starter and just more this team being cautious while saying, hey, we can watch Fields a bit more here in early August.
I'm going to shift this on you real quick. Mason Rudolph is a better quarterback than Kyle Allen.
I mean, I've gotten to see more Mason than Kyle Allen, but yeah, I would say yes to that.
I was just that just crossed my mind.
Any particular reason you're asking?
Let's not get to the number 3 quarterback in 2024.
Yeah, that would be nice, but I think the team will value Kyle Allen's experience. I think this team likes having 3 quarterbacks that have a fair amount of Sunday experience, but certainly it does not get to that point.
And look, the way fans now in an instant reactions society that we've lived in for quite a few years now anyway, you're going to see it play by play. get Russell out there, put Justin in, or, those kind of things, especially if he does. And look, I'm with you. I'm expecting Justin to have a very nice preseason. Some of the throws of the video that's out there that I have seen from training camp, I think he's made some really nice throws. You can probably talk more on the decision making, on the ability to go through reads, because you don't get a good sense of that on just one play. Is he who you thought he was at the start of camp, or is he a little bit better? Or because I think the first couple of practices you were more, I don't want to say negative Nelly, but a little bit more down on Justin.
That's fair.
But since then, it sounds like he's strung together some very nice practices, especially these 6, I think.
You're right. I would say the first 2, 3, 4 practices before the pads came on, he basically was who I thought he was, with big arm talent, good deep ball accuracy, super athletic, but inconsistent, and, a lot of variance in his play and missing some of the short stuff, and routine things need to be done more routinely. But since the pads have come on, he had a really strong week where he was more consistent. He was more accurate to all levels. I think he's gone through his reads. He's had too many passes batted down. That's the biggest negative you could probably take away from Fields so far, but it has been a guy on the upswing. So again, you want to see that continue to trend and see that inside stadium action. But I would say the last week he has been better than where he was the first couple of days of camp and where he was in Chicago. Granted, limited sample size, camp context, quarterbacks can't get hit, and he should look good in these environments. So I'm not saying he's a changed man, but just evaluating this past week in a vacuum, you saw improvement.
And that's that's what you hope from the start of camp to the end of camp. Guys are on the rise.
Right, and that's why you're maybe giving Wilson some extra time, because you want to see Fields not just for a practice or two, but let's see him over a week and a week and a half. And how is their progression? Is there improvement? Does he correct the mistakes he made early in camp? So that's why you really want to let Fields have some extra time and extra reps, while making sure you don't press and rush Wilson back. Make sure he's 110% healthy. And I think you've gotten the benefit of that and seen Fields improve.
Look, this goes back once again to, if you get into the regular season here, and indeed Russell Wilson has started the season as your starter, as we are expecting, and you get through the first 4 games and you're 2-2 or 1-3, and the quarterback play has been very, very questionable overall. I think you really do have to take a hard look at it, because you got to make hay, as they say, in the first half of this season. At least it feels like the Steelers have to make hay in the first half of the season because of how the second half of the season starts up. You cannot go into that gauntlet of the AFC North 4 games in a row, and then the Eagles, and then Baltimore, and without fully. If you get into that stretch and you're having, should I pull the plug or should I not pull the plug or whatnot, then this thing could really spiral out of control. Absolutely. But I feel confident right now from where I was at the start of camp. I think Russell Wilson is going to be your starting quarterback week 1 in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think so too. And where it goes from there, we'll see. But I still think the story is generally the same. But just to say and remind that Fields will play. He'll have a role in this team, and it can be as a passer, not just as a runner, but there will be snaps for him throughout each week.
And it's easy for the major media to make this a story because of the situation that the Steelers are in, and especially with Russell Wilson not being full yet, and Justin Fields perceivably having, coming, making progress as camp goes on. It's an easy storyline to attack. This is a competition, and making it that way. But I think, in so many words, to circle this Seinfeld conversation all the way back to where we started, Mike Tomlin's comments to Kay Adams makes it sound like you try to frame it as being fair, but it's not really fair.
Yeah, what's his saying? I mean, he talks about fairness though, but not always equal. What does he
Right.
say? It may not always be equal, but I'll try to be fair. But yeah, in the world of quarterbacks, in the world of winning, you got to do what you got to do to win. But again, I still think that's going to be Russell Wilson, and I think they're being cautious because A, they view him as their starter, and they don't want to jeopardize their starter, and B, like I've been saying, they can get that longer lens view at Fields, knowing those opportunities will go away once Wilson is back in your guy, especially once the season begins.
Right. All right. Anything else to add on the whole quarterback situation here?
No, I think people know where we're at, and we'll keep watching and update you Tuesday on if there's any additional participation for Russell Wilson. All right, Dave, it's so funny. On Friday's show, we have this long 20, 30-minute discussion on Cole Holcomb, on his status, what the team's options are, and wondering about his future. And then that afternoon, a couple hours after recording, and probably only maybe an hour or two after the show was posted, we get word the team has reworked, restructured Cole Holcomb's contract. And the initial reporting was a little hard to parse out what the team was intending to do. I'll defer to you. Obviously, you know this stuff well. I think you've made good sense of what appears to be happening. So explain what the team did with Cole Holcomb's contract and what the ramifications of that could be.
Yeah, great timing on our part, right? And during the conversation that we had on Cole Holcomb, we even talked about, normally players like him in the situation, especially the amount of money, especially when it comes to the Steelers specifically, they don't have what they call split contract clauses in their contract. A split, whenever you hear the term split or split clause, mostly those things are happen with younger players, undrafted free agents, players not selected in the first, let's say, 4 rounds of the draft, specifically when it comes to Pittsburgh, although you do see it, I think, almost universally league-wide on guys drafted 5th, 6th, 7th round. Essentially what it means is the base, if the player has to go on any kind of list, reserve injured, PUP, NFI, any of those, what happens is if he goes on those lists, his base salary goes from the league minimum down to a split clause minimum. And there's a whole section in the CBA that you'll be able to look at the league minimum salaries for credited seasons for a player. And then below that, there's a table for split salary minimums for players based on credited seasons. And that just protects a team that, hey, if this guy gets injured and we have to carry him on any one of these lists, we get a cash discount and a gap discount on putting those players on the list until they return. And the initial reporting on this was very, very vague by Aaron Wilson. But in the flip side, thank God he used the word split and base guarantees within his very short tweet. I didn't have to play rocket surgeon to kind of figure this out and kind of decipher it down here. In short, what has happened here is Cole Holcomb was set to earn $6 million base salary in 2024. What has essentially happened here is they went to him and said, look, it feels like you're not going to start the regular season as a healthy guy. And then long story short, you're not going to come off of active PUP by the start of the regular season, which would then put you a candidate to be reserve PUP. And that makes it very hard for us to pay you your full salary of $6 million while we wait for you to come off of that. So we're going to present this to you. We would like you to agree to a split salary clause of $3.1 million for the start of 2024. And if you can get yourself off of that list at any point, during the season, then you'll go back to the pay rate of $6 million. So it certainly does sound like at they're planning on Cole Holcomb starting the regular season on what's called reserve PUP, which means he won't practice, or it doesn't sound like the plan is for him to practice at all during training camp or the preseason. And if indeed that is the case, the moment that he goes from active PUP to reserve PUP come week 1 of the season, his salary will drop from $6 million to $3.1 million. And then we'll sit and wait and see if he can get himself off the list during the season. And now, as part of that negotiation, it sounds like they at a minimum guaranteed that he would at least earn 3.1. In other words, if he stays on reserve PUP all season and never gets activated from that, at a minimum, he's going to earn 3.1 million, and he'll get a shot to at least see what happens in the final year of that contract. Now, here's the thing too. I don't think there's any tolling that will go on, because this is not the final year of his contract. So if Cole Holcomb stays on reserve PUP all throughout the 2024 season and does not play, it's just a lost year for everybody involved. And then that would make 2025, he would have to earn, because there's also, I think, there's an off-season roster bonus in there next off-season there. And basically it will come down to if they, I can tell you,
rework that contract and take the bonus out. Maybe you may have to do something with that bonus for Holcomb to.
Right,
it's hard to pick it up.
Right, he's scheduled to earn a roster bonus in, I believe, March of 2025 of $2 million. It's hard to pick that up.
He misses a whole year.
Yeah, it's sight unseen. That's hard. It's hard to see that happening.
Yeah, or you push that back to August 31st, something like that, where he makes the team, then you pay him the money.
It feels like, and in so many words, this was a great setup by us, quite honestly, to have a 20-minute conversation about him, because we even said, you're going to have a good sense if this guy's worth $6 million, right?
Sure.
And the fact of the matter is, and look, the salary cap number has not moved since this announcement. So that lets you know that at this point, this is all aimed towards a week 1 move to him going to reserve PUP. So this should, if you're in any future 53-man roster predictions that any of you listening to this have, it should include Cole Holcomb being on, not part of your 53, but he should be on your reserve PUP list if you want to look really, really smart at this point, because there is no reason to think right now that he's going to be on the active 53-man roster come week 1.
Right. You don't do this unless that's a direction things are almost certainly headed in terms of him going to reserve PUP. You start creating the off-ramp contractually to kind of handle that. Holcomb, based on the reporting from the beat writers, and I've yet to even personally see Holcomb at training camp. Maybe he's been there, have not seen him. He's done no work. I should mention as well, other guys on list, Dean Lowry and Cordell Patterson, are getting closer to returns. I think Lowry could potentially be activated this week. He looks super close, and Patterson is making progress, so that's good news on them. But Holcomb, he's going to start the year on reserve PUP. No clue if he plays this year. But in terms of where things are at right now, he's not going to be part of this 53-man roster week 1 in Atlanta. And you take it from there. And so your inside backers are Queen and Roberts and Peyton Wilson. And if they carry 5, then your other 2 are going to be Tyler Medikevich and Mark Robinson.
That's what it sounds like, according to everything I've seen out of you so far. Indeed. I also want to warn people, because the narrative, anytime you start seeing contract talk and restructure or renegotiated, technically what this was a renegotiation, right? Because I dare call it a restructure. What you did is renegotiated a clause in there, and then you guaranteed that if he goes on reserve PUP, that you're fully guaranteed that split at that point. So technically, this is a renegotiation.
Can you just explain from Holcomb's perspective the incentive to do this? This is basically to ensure that he's not going to get cut and he can just have at least some salary this year while he continues to rehab. Is that the incentive for him to do this?
Yeah, basically, because look, if he got. Remember, we talked about this the other day. How would it be if they did terminate the contract this offseason? It would probably be some sort of injury. You have to really get into the vocabulary and terminology and more specific. That's why I kind of left it open-ended, because it could have gone several different ways of how you might term this. And plus, would he file for an injury benefit? Blah, blah, blah. Fact of the matter is, if he gets cut with any kind of injury designation, if he's not the player that he was the moment he got injured, it's going to be hard to find him a team that would pay him even a veteran benefit salary, right?
And he receives none of his base salary, obviously, if he's released.
Right. Because his contract, none of his $6 million was guaranteed prior to them doing this renegotiation. So they hate to use the term, they had him by the short and curlies, but they did. But they did. They went to him and said, look, you're not going to be ready. You're not even a full year removed from this serious knee injury. Yes, you're making good progress. Yes, we think that there's it's really a lot of the conversation we had the other day, Alex, before this came out. You got to find out where he is and where you think he might be at any point during the season to see if you can get him on the field or not there. They went to him and said, look, you're not going to be ready by the start of the season. We kind of have our kind of wonder if you're going to be ready even by the middle of the season. Let's cut this salary down to half of what, a little bit more than half. And here's the other thing that gave it away. If you look at the base salaries of players for credited seasons in the CBA, and then if you look at the split amount minimums, and then you get percentages across all of those, an average percentage of what the cut of a split is, his matches that exactly. So that, I went in, I did some math, and if you look across the board at what the percent cut is from a base salary to a split salary, his essentially matches the average here of what the cut would be. It's like 56.7 or something. I don't have it in front of me here, but and that's what it is here. But I think it's a smart move on the Steelers part, and I think it's a smart move on Cole Holcomb's part to agree to this, because the alternative was him get cut with some sort of probably injury designation, and then him face, am I going to find any team willing to take a chance on me, or am I going to have to file my one-time injury benefit, whatever that is now, which definitely is not 3.1 million.
Right. I was going to say, the incentive for the team to do this is obvious. They save some cash and save some cap. And by the way, that creates even less cash spending this year, right, Dave, in terms of what they'll likely end up paying.
Yeah, there's even more cash to spend now, Alex.
Your request for them to spend more.
Here's the thing. While he is on reserve PUP, he will get paid at you divide the 3.1 million out over 18 weeks. Well, that will be his weekly paycheck. Now, if he comes off of reserve PUP back onto the active roster, he starts getting paid at the $6 million rate.
Right. That clause is voided once he's deemed healthy and off of PUP. Not to be pedantic, isn't it? Didn't they change it to 36 weeks you get paid over now instead of the 18?
Well, what I'm talking about as far as the salary cap accounting goes.
Oh, salary cap accounting. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so the incentive for the team is to save there, and the incentive for Holcomb to do this is you'll make more money by agreeing to this than you would if you were cut and filed for the injury benefit. You get to remain with the team, be at the team facility, and potentially, if you get healthy, could come back. But I'll tell you this, reserve pup. I know you're out the first 4 weeks. He's not coming back week 5. If we're at this stage right now where we're doing these contract renegotiations, then he's not coming back week 5. He may not come back at all this year, but if he does come back, it's not going to be until late in the season.
And what is the cutoff for? What is the actual week of cutoff where he's got to be off of?
I was going to ask about that. I'm not sure what the.
Is it week 10 or week 11 or something like that?
Is there a date on it? There's definitely a date where he has to be.
I thought there was a certain date. I don't know if it got changed in these latest rules and all whatnot.
Because I know with IR, like if you're designated to return, your window opens. I don't know how that works for pup. If you start practicing, I imagine you have a window that opens, but if you just sit there, can you come back at any point?
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it is once they open that's probably what I'm thinking about there. If they open the practice window for him, then he's got X amount of days to come off. And then if he's not, then he just essentially is out there in limbo and can't return. Those players technically, I think, remain on reserve PUP. But they just can't return. That's what I'm thinking about there. So in other words, we will get notification ahead of time that they're opening a window on him.
I do want to double check because I think there used to be a clause on pup where if you didn't come back by like week 8 or whatever, then you couldn't come back. But those might have been under some old rules, so we should double check that and make sure because pup could be a little bit different.
But at a minimum, he's going to have to miss the first 4 games. Period. End of story. Right. And you would think that the moment that if they're trying to get him ramped up, that we will get the report that they have opened a window on him. Here's the thing, though. You're right. Week 3, I mean, that window's not going to open week 3, and it's not going to open week 4. It's not going to open week 5. I think I think best case scenario for Cole Holcomb is maybe out of the bye week,
which is week 9.
Maybe we get word that he's progressed nice because that'll be about the year mark on him anyway from being removed from the injury, right?
Yeah, it was, I think, November 2nd, I want to say, was 1 year when he got hurt against Tennessee.
Right. So, look, don't count on getting any contributions from Cole Holcomb in 2024. Anything that you do get is a huge bonus right now at this point. But I don't think that once he goes on reserve PUP come week 1, and I'll be absolutely floored if he's not on reserve PUP come week 1. At this point, don't look to hear any news on him until the bye week.
Right, if that. And like you said, if he comes back at any capacity in 2024, count that as a win. And then you wonder 2025 with that roster bonus, what that future for Holcomb is. And even if he were to come back this year, what would his role be? If you have Queen and Roberts and Wilson, if those guys stay healthy and you're motoring along and those guys are playing well, there really is not a great role for Holcomb to come back to as the roster is currently shaped.
Look, you got to make sure he's ready to go and can help you improve the roster, assuming you don't have injuries on the roster at that position, which Lord knows they did last year. But you better be sure once you open that window on him.
And just as a clerical question, I know the answer is he doesn't have to, but he can just go. Holcomb can just go straight to reserve PUP. He will not have to make the 53 and then get put on pup again, right? He's just going straight to reserve PUP on cut down date.
Right. He goes from active to reserve PUP.
Okay. So just for people wondering, I know we get questions about Cam Sutton. Same thing. He doesn't have to make the 53. He'll go straight to reserve suspended. Holcomb will go straight to reserve PUP. And so that's 2 spots to get clear without actual any cutting when you're on your cut down date to work the 53.
Right. And look, we joke about it. That 20-minute conversation that we had about Holcomb the other day wasn't all for naught, because what has happened here is they've come to the perfect medium of all of it here.
Yeah, it's a win for both sides. Holcomb gets to have some money, gets to stay, be a Steeler still, continue to train, use the team facility, and the team saves some money. So it's a logical agreement for both sides to work and make sure that Holcomb can remain on the team.
And look, you do get, nearly, I guess it'd be 2.9 if he stays on reserve PUP all season. That's $2.9 million less in cash. This team already needs to. The cash. Hold on, folks. The cash spending's coming. I promise you.
I don't know. You're gonna be losing your mind over there with this team going backwards on their cash spending.
The cash will be spent. I know let's see, technically as of Sunday, 5 times 7, 35 days out from the start of the regular season. And I think that would make today, 34 days out. There is going to be cash spending that's going to take place here going soon. And the other byproduct of all this Holcomb stuff, once it hit Twitter, people thought, they're clearing cap space to go trade for Brandon Ayuk or what have you. Look, they could have they did not need this to happen. One is not related to the other. This was a business decision related to Holcomb and Holcomb only. Don't read into it being, well, they did this move because they're going to do this. Look at this only that's why Alex and I had the conversation about Cole Holcomb the other day. Mm-hmm. And don't read anything more into this renegotiation with the Cole Holcomb contract than what it is. This was essentially related to him. If they go out and trade for Brandon Ayuk 20 minutes after we end this podcast, it was not a byproduct of them doing anything with Cole Holcomb. I just want to get that out there because I know you got a lot of
questions about it. Yeah, it's an important point. Yeah, this one is all about Holcomb and his status and his health and how you navigate the contract and the health and how do you find a happy middle ground to make this thing work so he's not cut. And that's all of where this comes from. It's nothing to do with another move coming. Another move may come, but they are not related.
Right. I'm not going to say that, you got to be careful how you phrase that because people get their feelings hurt saying, well, that means that you think that they're not going. Look, I hope nobody has hoped more. Well, it probably has been people that hope more. Nobody has hoped more that all this doesn't end with the Steelers going out and getting maybe a Brandon Ayuk than me. I, however, for several weeks now have been of the opinion that, I'm kind of wondering if it's going to happen. But within that, nothing says that it can't happen on the Steelers end when it comes to a guy like Brandon. And look, those flames go up for a couple of days and then they go down. And you got a couple of beat writers now kind of stoking the flame, I guess, or embers or whatever, the last couple of days saying, yeah, it feels like this thing's definitely headed to a Brandon Ayuk trade, at that point. But don't think that what's happened here with, Holcomb is playing any role in that. That's the only thing that I just want to warn people about here.
Right. But it doesn't hurt to have additional cap space and cash available in that move.
Right. But once again, you're not going to get the benefits of any of this until week 1.
No, I understand. But I think in terms of Pittsburgh mapping and planning out what they'll have available to them, it just doesn't hurt from just a general cap space standpoint, obviously. But yeah, not related to this team making an Ayuk deal, 10 seconds from now.
I know where you can spend $2.9 million of that cash at.
On you talking a little running back action there? All right, you keep barking up that tree.
I'm just, would I go out still today and bet my house that Naji Harris gets an extension? No, I think that would be foolish to do. I would do it with Pat Freiermuth at this point, but I would not do it with Naji Harris. But all I'm saying is that I'm just saying.
And we're still on contract watch for Freiermuth, which we both believe will come at some point. Cam Hayward, still don't know anything happening there. And that off chance for Harris. So we'll keep watching.
Naji Harris deserves some sort of an award for this training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, and I think most people, well, I shouldn't say that. I think we both thought at least that Harris, if he did participate in camp, would be pretty limited, would be as he was last year, as somebody who was kind of, handled with great care, a fragile item who wouldn't be tackled much, make sure he's healthy and good to go. And that's not been the case. He has done every rep, every drill. He's been in live tackling sessions. He's been hit hard. He has been a full 100% participant, and credit to him for doing that in a contract year. Well, he's got to be healthy, have a great year to cash in next year, assuming there is no contract this summer.
You're out there, you see, does he look all in this thing as far as training camp and his actions? And I mean, you even noted that him and Pat Freiermuth and really seemed to be leaders, if you will. I mean, I would have had no issue if that guy said his hamstring hurt every day, to be honest with you. What I'm getting at is he looks engaged. This doesn't look fake with him. It doesn't look contrived or anything when it comes to Naji in training camp.
No, he's been a vocal leader. He has worked with some of the young running backs and kind of giving them some pointers, even after Peyton Wilson had a nice breakup on him in a one-on-one session. Harrison Wilson spoke for a moment, wasn't trash talk. It looked like it was constructive, a teach point there. So Harris, I think, has really stepped up. You see the way that he's responded to when Landon Roberts and Patrick Queen come chirping, the way that Harris, responds back and then hypes up teammates when they do well. I think he's always been a good teammate, but I think this year he's really taken his vocal in the visible kind of leadership and veteran status that he has to another level. And so it looks to me very sincere.
I suspect at some point the media is going to have enough of him being on silent now, because correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't heard from Naji since reporting day, right?
Correct. Although, what is there to say at this point? What is there left to really cover with Naji Harris?
But they're still going to say if he's a leader of this team, because even Freiermuth has had a couple of interviews. His turn in the rotation, call it, I don't know. Look, they grab players when they come off the field, right? That's how it happens. And I would imagine almost daily, Naji's asked, "Hey, do you have a few minutes?" And he's probably saying, "I got to go to a meeting." He's giving read. Do you have any issue? I guess where I'm going with this is, do you have? I am so glad that I wondered if he was going to do it. I've wondered the moment that he took the path that he took to the dorms in the video there when he showed up at training camp. I wondered if he was going to talk to the media there. I am so glad for him that he came out and he held that first session there. Do you have any issue with him not talking publicly since then?
No, because what else is there to say? He's been asked the questions about the fifth-year option, about the team, about the offense. Nothing dramatically has happened since that would require new ground or a pressing question. So I've spent no time thinking about, whether Naji Harris speaks to the media or not.
Do you think they're going to try to smoke him out now in the next?
I don't know.
In the time remaining at camp.
I don't spend a lot of mental calories on all of that. Maybe after a game, they'll try to talk to him. That's probably the next time after Friday's game. Although I don't know how much he'll play in Friday's game against Houston. But yeah, I'm sure they'll want to, but I don't really care if he does or not.
Well, once again, here I am defending him. I think he's been a model teammate. And if there was some sort of award with all these different manufactured criteria in my head, he should win it.
Let's stick on running backs here. Wrote an article this morning, and it's a very small sample size, just kind of a takeaway that I had, maybe reading too much into it. The dog days of training camp at Pittsburgh had a physical practice Sunday. They were working short yardage. They're bigs, as Mike Tomlin called it, a lot of 22 personnel, 13 personnel, fullbacks, and tight ends galore. The practice ended as they do annually, their goal line drill. So ball in the 1, 6 plays from the goal line, full tackling, live session. Jaylen Warren was running with the starters. He got 2 carries, scored once. Naji Harris did get 1 carry and scored, dove over the goal line for the touchdown. But it made me think about, could Jaylen Warren see more goal line work? He's really not been a goal line back. Naji Harris has really dominated those carries in that role over the last 2 years that Harris and Warren have been together. And I think under Arthur Smith, you look at some of his numbers, there's pretty heavy red zone splits, and he's a guy that loves to spread the ball around inside the 20, around the goal line. So all of that is to say, I think Jaylen Warren's going to see an uptick in some of those short yardage, goal to go inside the 5-yard line carries that really have not been there for him his first 2 years in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a few more, although I don't think Naji's been awful at it.
No. I mean, you have two capable power backs that can be tough to stop in that area. But I think, Warren a little bit shorter, a little low to the ground, maybe better in some of those man power schemes than Harris. Some of the stats indicate that. And I think just Smith's overall philosophy could even out those touches down low. Both are effective. And Harris has been more effective in short yardage in goal to go situations than Warren has. But I think you're going to see a pretty even split down there, which will result in some more touchdowns in close for Jaylen Warren.
I'm trying to pull up what Arthur Smith did last season. With
Ty Algier led the team in carries inside the 5. He had 6, and Bijan had 3.
You cheated. You already had it pulled up.
Yeah, because I wrote in the article. Yeah, I researched it. And then if you look 2 years ago, there was a pretty even split between, I think, Patterson and Algier. And then in 2021, it was like Mike Davis and Patterson having 10 carries each inside the 5. So pretty clear trend line on splits between splits inside the 5.
Is that a feature or a bug?
No, I think it's the feature. Sometimes people say it's a bug. I think people were frustrated on Bijan not getting those touches last year. But all that is to say that I think you'll see, and that could mean a couple fewer touchdowns for Naji. Now, hopefully you just have more goal line opportunities and more goal line runs and just have more red zone trips, and that'll increase production all around. But I think we'll see Warren get used, in tight this year.
All right, great observations by you through camp when it comes to that and pulling the stats, and it's a well worth article.
Dave, I know I'm asking you some questions, and you want to see these guys play, and we're waiting on more information, and this is going to be a long process. No starters determined here on August 5th or August 9th after the first preseason game. But where are you at on the top 2 rookie offensive linemen, Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu, in terms of, do you think they start week 1? I think we came into the year believing that Frazier would start at center, Fautanu a little less confident. Would he start? Would he not start? Based on what you've heard, what you've read, what you've seen, have your thoughts and feelings on those 2 spots changed at all, 2 weeks into the camp?
I was already kind of wondering ahead of training camp what was going to happen week 1 with a guy like Dan Moore. And specifically, either he's week 1 starting left tackle or he's on the bench. Nobody in their right mind, I think, would ahead of training camp think, well, maybe Dan Moore will be the week 1 right tackle. I did kind of wonder if maybe we were heading in the direction of, after coming out of the off-season program and all, that we were going to get to week 1, and regardless, unless something cataclysmic happened during training camp or in the preseason, that Dan Moore would be the week 1 starting left tackle, with Broderick Jones obviously being the week 1 starting right tackle. Nothing has happened so far, according to what you're reporting and others are reporting and what we've seen, to lead me to believe that that's going to be any different. With Zach Frazier, however, ever since he was drafted on through the bulk of the prime free agent period, signing period and all, I have had in my head that the little note, Zach, what all the kids say around draft time when they write down the player, or
Zach Frazier, no matter what.
Yeah, Zach Frazier, no matter what. Mm-hmm. I've had that piece of paper stuffed in my pocket. No matter what, Zach Frazier, week 1 starter. Yeah, I'm not as positive about that right now, and especially because from everything that you're writing and telling me, Nate Herbig has done nothing to hurt his chances of being at least that week 1 guy. Look, at some point, do I think this will happen, organically, that Zach Frazier becomes your starting center? Yeah, but I no longer strongly believe that Zach Frazier will be the week 1 starting center. Something's going to have to change my mind within the next several weeks for me to think otherwise.
I get that. I kind of view it as a jump ball right now. Nate Herbig is having the strong training camp that no one is talking about. He's been consistent with his snaps. He's been strong at the point of attack. He's had good reps against Benton in 1v1. He's been healthy. He's been available. He's worked hard. He's one of the first down on the field. He's got a good relationship with Frazier. It seems like those two are always chatting. They're always down on the field early, just kind of chilling and talking with some of them and the other rookie linemen, McCormick, Fautanu. But yeah, Herbig has been the starter, and unless he has a really poor performance in game inside stadiums, that may not change for week one. It will change eventually. As you said, Frazier will get the opportunity at some point, but I think this thing is, very much Herbig's for the taking, which I did not have that opinion going into training camp. Tackle is really messy. I can't get a read on this. I can't make heads and tails. I think Fautanu has had a good camp. I think he's been more impressive than Frazier, just comparing his performance versus what Frazier has done at center. I think Fautanu is probably, if this continues, it's going to be worthy of starting week one. I don't know if he will, but tackle has been much harder for me to get a read on in terms of how it's going to go. Although I think in terms of evaluating the player, Fautanu has had a better camp than Zach Frazier.
Hey, okay. Here's the thing, though, and we rolled this back in a recent episode as well, too. Caution everybody, because you remember back when Marquise Pouncey, it was what did we say? It was the third. They had 4 preseason games back then.
The third one he started.
Right. So, even if at this point, I think everybody's expecting Herbig to start the first preseason game against the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
I think that second preseason game will tell us everything that we need to know. If Frazier comes out and starts that game at center, the second preseason game, I think there's, that might be the way that they roll. But if he doesn't, and you get 2 preseason games underneath your belt, in other words, I think the script could still flip with Frazier at this point, but it's certainly not trending in the way that I thought it would originally.
Agreed. That second preseason game, which I assume Pittsburgh will use as the tune-up game, that'll be against Buffalo on Friday, August 17th, shortly after their joint practice, will be a good line in the sand. And we discussed that before, kind of like when to really tell which way the center battle is going to go. But just based on where things are at right now, Herbig's done a nice job. Frazier has not gotten a single, first team rep, and the way this thing is trending has Herbig in the driver's seat.
All right. So, look, we got 3 preseason games to go and 6 more training camp practices. So things can change, but you would think that, especially when it comes to the tackle position, things would start changing soon.
Let me ask you a question you're going to hate. You're going to just loathe this question, Dave. Week 1 at Atlanta. Give me your starting 5 offensive linemen.
It feels like this way. It's Dan Moore, Isaac Seumalo, Nate Herbig, James Daniels, and Broderick Jones. That's the way I don't have there. I would have to I would have to offer some sort of tangible support to go any way other than that. And based on, and not being out there, and not even seeing a preseason game off of everything that what you're telling me so far, it would just be a dart throw to go in any other direction other than that.
That's fair. That's reasonable. I will throw that dart, though, still. Maybe I'm being stubborn, and the evidence has not been heavily in my favor or really much in my favor at all. But I'll say Broderick Jones, Seumalo, Herbig, Daniels, and Fautanu at right tackle.
All right, but that's just a gut. That's just a gut. Has there been anything that leads you to go that way, though, other than just a gut feel?
2 things. You have occasionally, an emphasis on occasionally, seen Jones shift over to left tackle. It happened a bit yesterday as they were getting young guys, McCormick, Anderson, and Fautanu some extra first team reps. So it has happened at least a little, and Fautanu has had a strong training camp, and it's hard to ignore, I think, that performance, especially if that continues throughout.
Right. I'm not saying that it can't go in a different direction. I just, I'm just saying from what
sure
information I have, I'm not there to see that to be able to use that as a reason why I would go the opposite direction.
Yeah, no, your thought is reasonable.
I hope it goes the way that you laid it out there,
as does every other Steelers fan. Yeah, I know your thought is certainly reasonable and more defensible and easier to explain than mine. Maybe I'm being a little stubborn here, but that's where I'm at right now as a gut feeling with a lot more to watch.
Okay. And a lot can't change. I mean, like we said, there's still 30 whatever days left before they take the field against Atlanta.
Yeah, 6 camp practices, 3 cold games, injuries, play, so much can and potentially will change for this team.
And all right, sometimes, Dave, as I always like to say, especially when it comes to offensive linemen, this stuff comes out in the wash eventually during the summer before you get to week 1.
All right, Dave, any other Steelers topics for us to discuss? Anything from Friday Night Lights? Any comments from Omar Khan or the players that spoke that caught your attention?
No, we didn't learn really anything from Khan. He obviously asked, are you done making moves? And obviously, if there's a chance to improve our roster, we're going to look at it and do everything possible to make this the best team, yada, yada.
Did he talk about the quarterback situation? I mean, he had to, but I'm sure Khan was asked about Fields and Wilson, no?
Yeah, so there's so much. There was like 9 interviews.
I assume there probably was no great answer from Khan.
Right.
Regardless.
There was nothing overly revealing. Yeah, I think the most revealing thing to come out of this last week as far as interviews go was what we hit at the top of the show with Mike Tomlin, talking about fairness and all like that.
Okay. All right. Do you want to get to some reader emails and close out today's show?
Yeah, we can. Let's start with Chris Warren writes in, great camp coverage as always. The thing that I liked the most about Deontay Johnson was he was very quick and could always get open. Can you please talk about Van Jefferson and his ability to get off blocks and get separation?
It'll be easier to see some of that in the All-22. He's not a particularly twitchy guy. He's a bigger guy that's probably going to work a little more build up speed with some good hands and some size to kind of box out smaller players. He's certainly not Deontay Johnson in terms of style and body type and the quick twitch nature of being a nuanced, precise route runner. That is not his game. There is some athleticism there, but he's going to be a little more linear than what Deontay was.
All right, Mike Gretler writes in. That's a new name, I think, from Mechanicsburg, PA. Hi, Dave and Alex. Thank you to the both of you for once again the phenomenal coverage of the Steelers training camp development and news. Year after year, you prove no one else comes close to what you deliver. How about the nickname Beef for Mr. Willington?
Ooh, Beef Wellington. I like that. I'll pass that on. That's actually really good. I enjoy that. And thank you for the nice comments about our coverage.
That's a good one. Look, he has a legitimate shot at practice squad right now, from what you've seen, right?
Yeah, I think he's had a good camp. He's got elevated reps. He's athletic. He's got active hands. He's been successful in team and 1v1. He has done everything I think he can to make some plays.
All right, for people that might be tuning in late, Willington Prevlion was the one acquired off waivers from the Falcons. When did that happen? Before training camp, obviously.
Yes, it was early July, maybe.
Right. I'm trying to remember how much was that before mandatory mini camp or after?
It was June 22nd, which would have been after.
Okay.
Mandatory mini camps.
So, I mean, good on him for a guy to be able to get on the moving train like that, and make the impact that at least that we're talking about a guy like him, at least having a chance at a practice squad at this point. So, yeah, that's not a bad nickname at all, Mike. Thanks for writing in. Bryce writes in, Alex, who do you think has made a bigger impression so far in camp? Ryan McCollum, Dylan. He's got Dylan Long. I think he means
Cook.
Dylan Cook, or Spencer Anderson.
I'll say Anderson, Cook, and McCollum in that order. Anderson has been able to benefit from multiple rest days from Malu, which has given Anderson some first-team reps and second-team reps, so just additional work in different spots. I think he's had a good camp overall. I think Cook's been fine. It's not been maybe wowing me, but I think he's had a steady camp, and I want to see him in preseason action. McCollum has had issues with snaps and, he's practice squad at best again for him.
Is Cook a lights come on kind of guy? Because I don't remember, because really if memory serves me, that's when we started talking about him making a move was in those preseason games last year.
For me,
I don't remember. I remember you talking about him moving around and all like that, I think, during training camp last year. I don't know if we were talking about,
It started Friday Night Lights was when he came on, and then it certainly translated to the game, and that's always the really important part. Can you go from practice to the game? So we'll see. I mean, he's been fine. It's not like it's been bad. I mean, he's, it may be a little less noticeable because you've already kind of gotten comfortable with who he is. You kind of know his game a little bit, and he's not maybe coming out of nowhere the way that he really was last year. But yeah, it's been good. He's fighting and battling. But maybe Cook and Anderson could be a roster spot there. It's different positions. Anderson playing guard, Cook playing tackle, left tackle. But maybe there's a battle there.
Yeah, McCollum's just going to be at best a practice squad guy.
Yeah, he's gotten reps, third string center, but the reps have been just average.
All right, second part of this question. Arthur Smith sure does look a little giddy after his media sessions. I really like how he breaks things down. Definitely get the sense like Fittipaldo said that Arthur is the adult in that room. Alex, how would you describe the overall demeanor and attitude of the offense so far in camp?
I think they've responded to the defensive challenge when guys like Roberts and Queen have talked about, poke the bear, poke the hornet's nest. The offense is not just taking it when their guys, get scrapping, guys come in to support them, whether that's the O-line, young guys like McCormick and Fautanu sticking up for the quarterback, which you love to see when you see, Queen and Harris go at it, and then you see Warren and Roberts go at it, the way the guys respond to that. So I think they've matched the physicality. The defense might be setting the physicality or setting the tone, I should say, but the offense has sat there and matched it. Yeah, Smith has looked happy. He's probably just happy to not be in Atlanta, where every question was, why does the team suck? And who's your quarterback? Like that was the whole, conversation in Atlanta his final year. So he's probably just happy to be an OC and where it's kind of less pressure and kind of do his thing.
Mike Tomlin gave a great answer. I think it was yesterday when asked about Arthur Smith and all like that. What did he say? What stands out about Arthur Smith's leadership and style? He says, well, we hadn't faced any real adversity yet. So Arthur and I both have been around long enough to realize that you really get to know yourselves and each other through real adversity. This is a kind of a controlled environment, meaning training camp. Obviously, he's doing a great job, man, but we're not wearing our hands out, patting ourselves on the back. We know the things that lie ahead are really going to define that component. So good answer by Tomlin there. All right, that's got through all the questions there. We managed to get 90 minutes out of today's show. So quite a few conversations we had about the quarterback position, about Cole Holcomb, about running backs. What else did we talk about today?
The offensive line configurations there. So yeah, good show. We'll have our live stream tonight, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, our first YouTube question and answer live stream since training camp began. So expect a lot of questions. If you have a question about camp that didn't get addressed today, you can ask us then. Just go to my YouTube channel, Alex Kozora, and I will talk to you guys then. We'll be back at training camp on Tuesday, special edition episode Tuesday afternoon, and then regular podcast on Wednesday morning, which will probably be recorded Tuesday night because they are practicing in the morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week.
All right. Thanks for doing all that work for me. I appreciate it. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Find that ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So until the live stream later on tonight, or if you choose to wait until Tuesday after practice for the next special edition of the podcast, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.